the lobby owns Trump. The lobby owns J.D. Vance. All you have to do is just listen to them talk. They tiptoe around criticizing Israel when Israel does something that is contrary to what is in the Trump administration's interests, right? Because they understand that they will pay an awful price if they do criticize Israel. You want to remember that J.D. Vance wants to be president of the United States. That's all you have to know. That's all you have to know. We have this narrative in the United States about American foreign policy where we're the good guys and we're up against bad guys, and that allows us to do anything we want, but nevertheless, we're a benign hegemon. This narrative is deeply wired into the elite, whether you're a Republican or you're a Democrat. It almost doesn't matter. And the number of people who are willing to challenge that narrative are few in number. And the end result is that we just go on and on pretending that we can do anything we want, that the rule of law doesn't apply outside the United States and inside the United States when it comes to national security matters. And the end result of this is that it's having, and I'm choosing my words carefully here, a profoundly corrosive effect on the liberal democratic institutions in this country. The founding fathers understood that if you fight wars all the time and you build a national security state, it's very hard to maintain a liberal democracy. The occupation is illegal, period, end of story. But there are a couple other facts here. First of all, how do they know that those 24 people that they killed out of the 100 were Hamas members? How do they know that? They don't know that. They just pulled that number out of thin air. We have no idea how many Hamas people have been killed out of the, say, 100,000 who we know have died. How can you tell what the number is? Nobody knows for sure. So I don't believe that number. Furthermore, Hamas has denied that it was responsible for shooting at the IDF. And you want to remember that there are other groups inside of Gaza, some sponsored by the Israelis, who might have shot at the IDF. The IDF might have been shot at by one of these groups that's allied with the Israelis because the Israeli government is looking for ways to generate conflict so they can get the genocide started again. The Netanyahu government is not happy with this ceasefire. You want to remember that their goal here from the beginning has been to drive the Palestinians out of Gaza, to ethnically cleanse it. And they've ended up in a genocide, committing a genocide, because they can't drive them out. But a ceasefire, with a possible plan along the lines of President Trump's 20-point plan is not what they want, right? They want to go back to the genocide. So it is highly possible that the Israelis provoked this attack on the IDF. Their goal is to kill as many Palestinians as possible. Look at Gaza. Jared Kushner said on television recently that it looked like Hiroshima, like it had been struck with a nuclear weapon. You want to think about that. You just want to think about this. The idea that they're going after Hamas and that they're going to great lengths to spare the civilian population is laughable. And furthermore, on top of turning the place into Hiroshima, they're trying to starve the Palestinians in Gaza to death as well. So, when you talk about collective punishment, yeah, it is a form of collective punishment, but the issue here is much bigger than collective punishment. The ultimate goal of the plan was to have a full withdrawal with one major caveat. And that major caveat is that the Israelis would control the entire perimeter of Gaza, and to include the border between Gaza and Egypt. So in the plan, the 20-point plan that President Trump put out Israel would get out of all those yellow areas except for the borders of Gaza. And I think what you see on that map is pretty much in keeping with the Trump plan. The Trump plan called for a phased withdrawal, and this is phase one. So this is not surprising at all, except for the fact that it's surprising that the Israelis pulled out of those three big cities that we were talking about before, that they agreed to do that, but they obviously felt that they had no choice. Now, whether they pull out of those yellow areas and where this all goes remains to be seen. As I said to you before, it's just very important to understand that that Israel is committed to ethnically cleansing all of Gaza. They want to drive all the Palestinians out. And if you have any sort of meaningful ceasefire now that holds, and the war or the genocide goes away, the Israelis have not achieved their principal goal. And I actually believe when the shooting finally stops here and the Israelis take stock of what's happened over the past 2 years, it's going to be seen as a total disaster. You know, the Israelis, and of course their supporters here in the United States, which includes almost everybody in the mainstream media, are constantly spinning this story about what a great strategic situation the Israelis are in today, about all these victories they've won and so forth and so on. As I just pointed out, they've not won in Gaza. Hamas is not defeated. Hezbollah has not been defeated. And furthermore, with regard to Iran, there's all this talk about this great victory in June. Well, if they scored a great victory in June, why are they talking about attacking again this fall? They're talking about attacking again this fall because they didn't score a great victory. They didn't destroy the nuclear enrichment capability of Iran. And furthermore, they didn't break Iran up into little pieces. They didn't do to Iran what they did to Syria. And that's what they want to do. So they want to go back at Iran. So I think if you sort of look at what's happened to Israel, and then you throw in the damage, the permanent damage that's been done to Israel's reputation because of the genocide, I think these past 2 years are going to be seen as a disaster for Israel, a terrible situation. So all of this is to say they have a vested interest, the leaders do, in continuing the war so that they can drive all the Palestinians out and say, look, we achieved this great victory.
Will the government of Israel now accept a Palestinian state? Is this a step towards statehood?
No, I think that one should read President Trump's plan. President Trump's plan saying that the PA should work and really reform. And it refers to the previous Trump plan of 2020. And you should read that also. You have the stop of the pay for slay, stop incitement in education system of the Palestinian Authority, recognition in Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, recognition of Israel as a Jewish state, withdrawing from the claim to right of return to all of Israel. So if you take it by the words, I want to see the PA implementing in order that they will be able to be a reliable partner.
You got to read 19 clearly and look at point number 20. Point number 19 does not say that the United States is committed to a Palestinian state. The language is conditional and it focuses on what is a Palestinian aspiration. Point 20 is the key point, and it says that there is no political horizon established, and what we have to do is have dialogue to figure out what the political horizon is. The political horizon is the end game. It's what the final political solution is. And the document says that we have no final solution here. There's no Palestinian state as the ultimate goal. And you want to understand that the Israelis went over these 20 points with a fine-tooth comb. Ron Derner, who is Netanyahu's principal advisor on these matters, met twice, on the Thursday before the Monday and on the Sunday before the Monday when Trump issued this plan. And they carefully crafted the language to make sure it doesn't reflect the argument that we're going to end up with a Palestinian state. This plan that you're looking at is not simply Donald Trump's plan. It's an Israeli-American plan. And there's no language in there that can be read to say that you're going to end up with a Palestinian state. And of course, when you listen to the Israelis talk, there's no way there's going to be a Palestinian state. I mean, look, what's happening here? We're talking about a Palestinian state. We're talking about a country where that's run by genocidal monsters who've been conducting a genocide for 2 years, and whose principal goal is to drive the Palestinians out of Gaza. They don't want a two-state solution. They want a greater Israel that has no Palestinians in its midst. And the idea that, Trump is going to get a two-state solution is delusional. But read what it says in 19 again. This is carefully crafted language, right? But the fact is the Israelis have made it unequivocally clear that there's not going to be a Palestinian state. And when you look at public opinion polls inside of Israel, there's no interest in giving the Palestinians a state. And after what's happened over the past 2 years, do you really think that you could create a two-state solution at this juncture? I don't think so. The level of hatred and distrust on both sides is just enormous. And again, if you go to the 20th point where they talk about what is the political horizon, we should read point number 20. Right. Why are they establishing a dialogue? Because the two sides don't agree. Do you think they're going to have a meaningful dialogue? Right. The Israelis wouldn't. The Israelis have never agreed in any meaningful way to a two-state solution. They were, coming closer and closer to that in the 1990s. But by the time Camp David negotiations ended in 2000, it was all over with for all intents and purposes. More horrible things are going to happen to the Palestinians. Just look at what's happening on the West Bank. We're talking about Gaza, right? There were 2.3 million Palestinians in Gaza before the genocide started. And at the same time, there were 3.2 million Palestinians in the West Bank. Look at what they're doing on the West Bank. It's horrendous, right? They're trying to ethnically cleanse the West Bank as well. They want to drive the 3.2 million Palestinians on the West Bank out every bit as much as they want to drive the Palestinians in Gaza out. They want a greater Israel that's Palestinian free. That's what's going on here. And they're willing to create or execute a genocide in Gaza to achieve this. Just look at that footage. Look at what they've done in Gaza. It's just truly remarkable. It violates everything we're supposed to stand for as a liberal democracy. So when you... And again, as I said before, the monsters who executed this genocide are still in power.
So Gaza, we believe, is going to be a much safer place, and it's going to be a place that reconstructs, and other countries in the area will help it reconstruct because they have tremendous amounts of wealth, and they want to see that happen. And we'll be involved in helping them make it successful and helping it stay peaceful, but I think it's going to be peaceful. I think again, the Iran situation was very important, doing what we had to do, which was, again, 22 years it was planned to be done, and no other president wanted to do it or whatever, for whatever reason, but they didn't do it.
If you listen to President Trump, not just in that announcement, but in a number of other things he said in recent days, he is really committing himself publicly to peace in Gaza. It's not going to be easy for the Israelis to get around that and to restart the genocide. I'm not saying they can't do it. I'd never underestimate the Israelis' ability to manipulate Trump. But Trump is really publicly committed to peace in Gaza. And I think the Palestinians, and here we're talking about Hamas mainly, I think they've figured out that they have to hitch their wagon to Trump and hope that Trump can sort of lead them out of the wilderness. So it'd be very interesting to see how this plays out, because Trump, again, is publicly committed to creating peace.